Square Enterprises Incorporated is a company that imports and distributes products from Poland. And they recently sent me a pretty heavy box full of stuff to review. I told them I was interested in some of their products, and I had no idea the full extent of what they had. So here's the canned stuff that they sent me. There's a lot of pork stuff in here. But the main thing I was interested in, and which they did also send me, was these Army brand canned meat products. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at these today. Hopefully I'll find time for the reviews of the rest of the stuff sometime in the future, but I just am mostly fascinated with these things right here. So Square Enterprises does have a bunch of different brands that they put on their foods. Some of them I just go by the name Square. And there's a few other ones, but I just think this is incredible. They have a brand called Army Brand. That's the name of the brand. And it's put out by Square. And obviously the concept of canned or tinned meats is nothing new. And they've been found in pantries all around the world for decades. And for a long time, they're the main components of military rations around the world, too. Obviously because it's a great way to store them and they can last for a long time. One thing you find a lot in cans is seafood. I would say sardines is probably the most common thing in one of these little tins. You can also find stuff like salmon and mackerel in tins and in cans. And you can even find things like clams and shrimp and all kinds of other stuff if you look around. As far as meats themselves go, probably the most famous canned meat is Spam. It's obviously pretty well known around the world. And it's easy enough to find Spam in stores along with other stuff like canned ham, deviled ham, Vienna sausages, and all kinds of other stuff. So I'm not claiming there's anything new with the idea of canning pork products. This product just, I just really love this. I mean, the can itself is camouflaged, and it's called Army Brand, and the names of these things are great too. Let's take a look at them. I think I've mentioned that I'm pretty much expecting these things to be like Spam. The ingredients are similar. The main ingredient is pork. And I'm actually expecting all these to be pretty similar to each other, but I just really have to focus on this. As I said, the can itself is camouflaged. The name of the company, well obviously it's from Square, but the name of the company for this brand is Army Brand. There's nothing military about this. It doesn't claim to be part of the military or anything. It's just for whatever reason they decide to put it in a camouflage can and call it Army Brand. And then we have to check out the name of this one. It's chopped pork patty loaf. It's not just a pork patty or pork loaf. It's a chopped pork patty loaf, with patty spelled P-A-T-T-I-E. I don't know exactly how it can be a patty and a loaf at the same time, but whatever, that's what it is. Product of Poland. And there it is in Polish. I don't know exactly what that says. And there's the manufacturing information. I'm actually pretty glad it says on most of these, refrigerate after opening, best to serve chilled. Because some of these things that they sent me, I'm not really sure if they should be heated up or eaten cold. So to have them tell me that helps a lot. And here's the ingredients in the chopped pork patty loaf. Pork meat, pork skins, salt, dried onion, lard, ground paprika, laurel, pepper, pork ham flavor, includes maltodextrin, salt, and soy protein, and natural flavor, and marjoram. But the other two cans that they have in the Army Brand, notice they even have a different color on the camouflage, making a nice little variety there. These are, if anything, possibly even more interesting than the general chopped pork patty loaf. We have the Army Brand Officer's Pork Loaf. To me that doesn't sound appetizing. Also a product of Poland. Very similar ingredients. Interestingly enough, the Officer's Pork Loaf actually has less ingredients than the chopped pork patty loaf. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but very similar. And then the officers get the pork loaf. Let's check out what the sergeants get. Here's the Army Brand Sergeant's Pork Pate. Sergeants get pate, and the officers just get a loaf. The sergeant stripes here. More camouflage. And once again, very similar ingredients. Looks like the main thing I could see in here that's different from the other ones, in addition to the fact that it doesn't have marjoram, is that it includes pork liver, which is, I suppose, what makes it the pate. Let's see if it Makes any difference in the taste though. And here's the nutrition facts. The serving size is only 2 ounces, so there's 5 servings per container, so keep that in mind when looking at the calories, 210 calories per serving, and the rest of the nutritional information. Not surprisingly, it's pretty high in fat, a good amount of sodium, not as much as Spam. I want to say that's sort of a low sodium compared to a lot of the other canned stuff. The offers is pork loaf. Nutrition facts on that one. A little bit lower on the fat, but the same on the sodium. And now comes the moment I've been waiting for a while. Take a look at these Army brand pork products. I do want to start with the Army brand chopped pork patty loaf. These things do have the, I forgot to mention, the officer's pork loaf and the sergeant's pork pate. They do have Best By dates on the cans, which is useful. This one is March 11th, 2016, so they obviously have a pretty good shelf life. And the sergeant's pork loaf is October 30th, 2015. It's about another year from now. Not sure when they were manufactured, so I don't know how long they've already been around, but so they got a pretty good amount of shelf life to them. The chopped pork patty loaf has this on the bottom, but I'm not exactly sure how to read that, if that's anything to do with the Best By date. The 3163 does look like a military date code for 163rd day of 2013. That could be when this was canned, but I have no idea if they're using military date codes or not. And I don't see anything on here as far as Best By date. It does say best to serve chilled. I'm going to go ahead and do this at room temperature. Here is the Army brand chopped pork patty loaf. Wow. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm getting a strong smell of canned meat. Wow. Anybody who had MREs back in the early 80s, if you remember, there was something that was kind of nasty as an entree. It was called the chicken and pork loaf, and it smells a lot like that. It smells quite a bit like ham, and yes, it does smell quite a bit like Spam too. And I'm guessing that this is the this white stuff on here is the fat from the pork, or it could be the lard. Wow. I wonder if you were to heat this up, if this stuff would melt a little bit, make it look a little bit more appetizing. And I see in the corner here there's a gelatinous, there we go, whatever that is. You can find that in a lot of canned hams. Alright, well, that's the chopped pork patty loaf. Let's see how the Army brand officer's pork loaf differs from that. Actually looks reasonably different. There's more of the gelatin here, and a lot less of the white fat consistency kind of thing. There's a little bit over here and here. It's a pretty solid chunk of pork and pork skins, apparently. Definitely nowhere near as smooth as Spam. It smells similar. There's a slight difference between these two, smell-wise. This one's not quite as strong. But now, let's see what the sergeants get with their pork pate. This one, of course, as I said, has pork liver in it. Let's see if this is any different. Whoa. Uh-oh. Yikes. That's a little scary. Wow, look at that. Tell you, if I was to see this and not know what it was, ooh, man, that's weird. My first guess would be that it was some kind of a seafood, some sort of a fish or something. It's instead of the gelatinous stuff, this actually has a liquid on top of it. It does have some of this white stuff here, some sort of fat, but it's interesting that it's like an oil. Huh. Well, doesn't have much of a flavor. I just kind of tasted that a little bit, but Now I guess comes the main part. I'm going to actually give these things a taste. Let's see if I can scoop out a little of this pork patty loaf, chopped pork patty loaf. Get a little bit of everything here, including this fat, which is a little disturbing. Alright, and there's our chopped pork patty loaf. And the officer's pork loaf. And of course we can't forget the sergeant's pork pate. Which is going to run all over the place if I'm not careful. Alright, there's a difference in consistency in this. I would say that this is more like a pate. And that it's... doesn't want to come off the spoon. Come on. That's weird. I'm not really sure what that is. Very dense sort of a thing. Alright, and there are our 3 Army brand pork products. As I mentioned before, I was expecting these to be basically different versions of Spam. I don't know about taste-wise, but product-wise, I'm actually a little impressed with the variety they have. The chopped pork patty loaf has quite a bit of texture to it. You know, say what you will about Spam, but it's it may not be the healthiest thing in the world, but it is does taste like ham, and it looks like ham, and it basically is just ham. And this stuff is a little bit different. It's it's got a different consistency to it. It's not chopped totally smooth. It's got different layers of fat or lard or whatever in here. And I don't exactly know what the pork skins are, if that's just something chopped up that's in there. But we have the gelatin stuff, the actual various pork things, and this white stuff, which is either pork fat or lard. And I think I might actually try this heated up, because this does not look very appealing, I have to say. The meat itself doesn't look that bad, and it smells like Spam, so I'm not too shocked by that. The officer's pork loaf, I don't know if maybe it's a slightly higher quality than the pork patty loaf. It seems to have done away with a lot of the lard or the fat. It's more just the meat, but and a lot more of this gelatin stuff. But otherwise, pretty similar. And then the pork pate is actually different. It's very much not even. I mean, these are chopped, I guess you'd say. And this is I don't even know what you'd say, pureed, blended. And so it's like you would expect, like a liverwurst kind of a thing to have, or basically a pate in general. It's very smooth, pretty dense. And I guess we have to try these, right? I gotta see what this lard type thing is. I'm gonna try this by itself first. Ooh, It doesn't taste like anything. I'm not even gonna bother with that again. See how the loaf itself is. Yeah, I expected it's pretty similar to Spam. It tastes like ham. Surprisingly, it doesn't taste terribly salty. It is salty, of course, just not overly. And the gelatin here stuff seems to add to the flavor. I think this would be good if this was heated up, especially this stuff melted, and this gelatin melted on it. I think it would taste pretty good. So we'll go for the officer's pork loaf, mostly because it's just so similar. And the officers don't have to deal with quite as much lard. And you can see it's got some texture in there, some of the ham or pork texture. Spam itself is like it's like a solid chunk of really processed stuff. This obviously is processed, but it's not. Actually, it looks sort of like real meat there, doesn't it? Very similar, slightly different taste. I don't know if I would say better or worse, but maybe a little bit more flavorful. A little closer to Spam, I guess. It's not too bad. Granted, keep in mind, we are talking about a canned meat here. Me saying that this tastes pretty good doesn't mean I would run out and buy it and have it for dinner. But for something that's in a can, something that you'd use for supplies, or maybe have alarm for an emergency in case you need something to eat, it'll definitely do the trick. Now let's try the Sergeant's pork pate. That is, it's a weird consistency. I'm going to put these on crackers, and these I actually don't mind just eating on their own, but this, the sort of squishy consistency of it is a little bit disturbing, might be too strong of a word, but I think it belongs on something. But basically, like a liverwurst kind of a thing. Pate, not incredibly flavorful. Let me try some of this white stuff here, which I'm still not exactly sure what it is. Some sort of fat, either naturally occurring or added. I know you wouldn't normally heat pate up, but I'm wondering if this might be better if it was heated and that white stuff was melted in there. It does have this kind of strange oil in there too. Let me try some of this on crackers. Really nothing wrong with this. If you hate Spam and everything about Spam and think it's a gross thing and a very unhealthy thing and you would never eat it, I would definitely recommend staying away from Army brand. But if you can appreciate canned meat for what it is, it's pretty good. Yeah, putting on a cracker is it's a good way to do it, I think. The Officer's pork loaf seems to be a little bit denser, a little bit more packed together. I'm not sure if there's any difference, but it seems to be slightly different. This does have some fat in it, just not nearly as much as the chopped pork patty. This might not be bad if it was melted in there, but I'm not going to even touch that again. The Officer stuff is slightly above the standard pork patty level. And I think this pate on a cracker is going to be very good, if I dare make a prediction. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Not incredibly flavorful, considering the amount of sodium that's in these. You almost expect a little bit stronger flavor, something that would make you thirsty. Because overall, let's say it makes for a pretty interesting pork eating experience. I think my favorite thing out of the three would probably be the pork loaf, Officer's pork loaf. But they're all definitely edible. Like I said, I just think it's fascinating that they would bother to make three separate products under the Army brand label. Very similar ingredients. The pate is a little bit different, but when you could put all three of these together and make one thing out of them and put them in one can. But they take the extra step of making these slightly different and that one quite a bit different, giving them different cans. And they had to print up three totally different labels, and I just think it's great. I mean, Army brand chopped pork patty loaf, Army brand Officer's pork loaf, and Army brand Sergeant's pork pate. How can you not get a kick out of that? Thank you for watching.